Our top story today. There is clearly not the best time that is going on for India's aviation sector. From the devastating Air India aircraft crash that killed over 250 people to the recent operational chaos involving Indigo that threw flight schedules into disarray, to the private plane accident that claimed the life of Maharashtra Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar. Just in the past 24 hours alone, there have been at least 3 incidents, one of them resulting into deaths as well. An air ambulance crashed in Jharkhand. Everyone on board could not make it. The Pavan Hans helicopter crash landed in Andaman and Nicobar Islands after a mid-air snag. Luckily, all 7 people on board were actually rescued safely. And then you had a scare on the SpiceJet Delhi-Leh flight. It was diverted back to Delhi due to a technical snag. Remember, just these 3 things reported in just the past 24 hours. And we've spoken about the big tragedies we've seen in the past year to even in the past 5 years that have been emerging. All of this points to just one thing. Our aircrafts and choppers aren't inspiring a lot of confidence at the moment. But beyond that lies a much larger and far more serious question. Is India's aviation watchdog struggling to safeguard our skies? India today can now reveal that the Director General of Civil Aviation, the DGCA, which is sort of the key body there, is battling significant staff shortages, even as it is tasked with overseeing airlines, charter operators, maintenance organizations, and air safety compliances across the world's fastest growing aviation market. Let's look at the numbers that we got as India Today's reporters filed an RTI asking this question. In the Airworthiness wing, the division responsible for aircraft maintenance oversight and technical compliance, there are 310 sanctioned posts. Only 174 are filled as we speak. That leaves 136 vacancies. In percentage terms, it's about 44% positions are unoccupied. In the air safety wing, which conducts surveillance, audits, monitors safety protocols, 116 posts are sanctioned and only 86 currently hold. That means again 30 vacancies in the department directly responsible for monitoring operational safety. These revelations come after an RTI application sought detailed information about DGCA's oversight mechanisms, particularly its audits of non-scheduled operations, private and charter aircraft that fall squarely under the regulatory ambit. And this was given in a response. Detailed information was requested on DGCA audits of these operators. The response did not provide specifics sought at all. The application also asked whether there has been instances of expired aircraft components being used. Again, no details disclosures were made there. Comprehensive findings from earlier crash investigations was also sought. Information that could help identify the recurring gaps or systemic failures. Those details also not furnished. The DGCA, however, has clarified why it could not furnish these details as well. The regulator stated that concerned Central Public Information Officer, or the CPIO, handling only matters related to cadre management, or that is Group A technical. It's a bit of a technicality there behind which they're hiding. And according to DGCA, the specific information sought in the RTI application does not form part of records maintained by the particular office. Let that sink in. The regulator further added that the application has been forwarded to another concerned CPIO within the DGCA for appropriate action and response. However, when it came to staffing strengths, the RTI's response confirmed what is perhaps most concerning at the moment. Multiple key departments within the DGCA are operating below the sanctioned capacity. So while critical audit and compliance data are not shared, what did emerge clearly is that the regulator itself is stretched. And why exactly does that matter? Because over the past decade, India has witnessed several fatal civil aviation crashes involving commercial airlines as well as charter and private aircraft. In June 2018, The Beechcraft King Air C-90 charter aircraft crashed in Mumbai's Kapoor. That was shortly after takeoff, killing all 4 on board and a pedestrian on the ground. In August of 2020, tragedy struck at the Kozhikode when Air India Express Flight 1344 overshot a tabletop runway during heavy rain. 19 passengers and both pilots lost their life. The final probe report cited pilot error, which is always the case, but we never really get to know. In June 2025, one of the deadliest aviation disasters in recent Indian aviation unfolded in the Air India Flight 171, a Boeing 787 bound to London. Remember, crashed shortly after takeoff from Ahmedabad. 241 passengers and 19 crew members were killed. Detailed investigation still underway. There again, some reports were said that it's pilot error because the pilot never made it, so easy to blame them. But the court has come down very heavy on that case and said, no, you have to get down to the problem and identify what's going on. But even then, January of 2026, a private aircraft carrying Ajit Pawar, we all know that, crashed near Baramati, killing all 5 people on board. A preliminary report is expected soon. We still don't know the real cause. And just yesterday, an air ambulance flying from Jharkhand to Delhi crashed in the Chatra district, killing all 7 on board, including the medical staff and the patient. Now, each of these crashes unfolded under very different circumstances. Different aircraft, different operators, different weather conditions, different technical and human factors completely. And yet here we are. That is a national safety concern, which begs the question, is India's aviation regulator struggling to keep pace with the growth of India's aviation industry? To talk to us a little more about that, let me bring in an expert now. Joining us next is Sanjay Lazar. He's an aviation expert, trainer, and the CEO of Aviala's Consultants. Sanjay, thank you so much for joining us and for your time. You just heard me bring out all those details that we have sought in that RTI reply. This has been spoken about in the past, but for the first time, we have very clear data telling us that exactly how much of shortage does the watchdog, in fact, have in itself. And while we've been talking about, about 40% shortage of even the watchdog not having enough to keep checks, how concerning is it?
Good evening, Sonal. Thank you for having me in your show. It's highly alarming that we've first of all had, 3 incidents in the last 24 hours. But if you go back over the last 5 years, we've had almost 50 incidents of aircrafts and, airlines, etc., plus almost 320 people dead. Now, this is an alarming incident. I'm incidentally at an aviation conference today, and this is one of the subjects that, people talk about. They're concerned about what's happening in India's aviation. It needs to be mentioned here. You pointed out correctly that almost 50%, 40-odd% of the DGCA is understaffed. But it also points to a greater malaise within our aviation system, that there is not enough oversight of the DGCA, there is not enough oversight of the ministry, there is not enough churning within these networks, within these setups. And the government needs to look at it. Today, we are at 800-odd aircraft in this country. We are moving to, we've got 1,700 aircraft on order. We will move to 3,000 aircraft in 5 to 6 years, 300 airports. How do we manage this? If we're not going to create a special cadre, and this is where I believe that the government has missed a trick here, because, we had a bill in Parliament to make the DGCA into a CAA authority in 2014. It should have been created as an independent body. It should have had its own cadre of officers who would look after this and fill this up. I think the time has come, and it's long overdue, that we get a kind of restructuring in our aviation system. We get greater safety oversight. That should be the focus of the government more than just building airports blindly. It's senseless to just keep building airports and have accidents every alternate day.
No, you're right about the airports building, because just yesterday there was another RTI reply that we had filed, and what we got to know was that just in UP alone, out of the 7 airports that had been built up, 6 of them now stand defunct. After spending crores and crores of them, now there is not a single flight that is taking out. So it was bad decision making by the central government. This was under the Udan scheme, of course. It's got nothing to do with the UP government. But I mean, which begged the question yesterday that who's clearing these things? But now what today's RTI throws another leg, peels down the problem to the core. But Sanjay, from what you are saying that government does not have enough oversight. You mean the aviation industry players are taking people for a ride? There is not enough oversight? Am I to understand that correctly?
Well, when you talk of the legacy airlines, the Air Indias, the Indigos, the Akasas, the Spice Jets, there is robust oversight there. Still, you find stuff slipping through the cracks. But when you talk of the smaller NSOPs, the small charter companies, there's a lot that slips through the cracks. And this is where the problem happens. If you're understaffed by 50% as a regulator, it means, number one, you've either got too much to do as a regulator, and the government has not bothered to fill up the vacancies. So therefore, where do you concentrate? Do you concentrate on the big legacy airlines that are carrying lakhs of passengers a day? Or do you look at the smaller charter operators who would fly 2 flights a day or 10 flights a day, as opposed to the hundreds and thousands of flights? And this is where we are finding the issue, because there's obviously some shortfall. Audits are not being completed in time. Investigation reports are pending for 3 years. We've just seen VSR and Ajit Dada Pawar's tragic death. The old report of the Mumbai incident has still not been submitted. So,
Yeah.
I mean, where do we go from there? So this is something that the government, the cabinet will have to look at, and the minister, and I reach out to him. I think it's high time that we look at this very holistically, or divide the DGCA, create a safety mechanism separately, which overlooks and has complete oversight and responsibility.
So, Sanjay, help me understand this. After the Air India tragedy, we were expecting things to change. I remember for almost a couple of months after that, we constantly had flight cancellations because the pilots were taking that call. They said, even if there is a little snag, I'm not going to go over it. I'm going to report it and I will refuse to fly this aircraft. We had that, right? Then following it, we had the Indigo entire tragedy, where again, the government had to step in, they appeared to be penalizing Indigo for having not followed enough safety protocols. But that story also made it very clear that aviation players, the aircraft player, they are very clear. They want to make profits. They are not going to prioritize passenger safety. That is the work of the government. Are you telling me now that despite both these massive tragedies that we've seen unfold in front of us, the government has still not woken up?
Well, I do believe that the government needs to wake up more. If they have woken up, they've only, at stage 1 got out of bed. They need to get on their feet and get cracking. Start changing, whole things and rework this entire scenario. Yeah. I think somebody can't hear me.
No, we can hear you. Go ahead, Sanjay. Go ahead.
So this is the thing I believe that the cabinet needs to step in and crack the whip on the ministry. The ministry needs to crack the whip on the DGC. I think structural reform is what we are missing, because I can still see a lot of flagrant violations occurring at the smaller levels, and this is something that needs to be tackled post haste.
All right, Sanjay, we leave it there for the moment. Thank you so much. But Sanjay, they're making it very clear that it's not just time to wake up, it's time to run and solve for the problem here. We cannot have an expanding aviation sector in the country where the watchdog itself is not empowered enough. We cannot expect the watchdog to ensure all checks are taking place if they are only understaffed. And who takes care of that? It has to rest with the aviation ministry. So let's hope they are listening in. Despite all the data that was not shared with us, one thing is absolutely clear, that this is time for the aviation sector in India to wake up and smell the coffee. All right, with that, let's move on and bring you the other big story that we are tracking, and this is a shocker coming in from Uttar Pradesh. The next story that we are shedding light on exposes how dark some minds can really become. In Lucknow, a 21-year-old youth shot his own father to death. A son killed his father, and he did not just stop there. Akshay Pratap, he even dismembered his father's body, poured acid on it and hid it inside a drum at their home. Why? At the moment, we are made to understand it's because the father was constantly pressurizing his son to prepare for NEET. That's the story so far, but the details really, send shock waves. So we thought we'll bring you a report to tell you what exactly happened in this case.
NEET. A rifle. A father-son duo. A blue drum and one fateful day. On the 20th of February, inside a house in Lucknow's Ashiana locality, a heated argument broke out between 21-year-old Akshat Singh and his father, liquor businessman Manvendra Singh. The trigger? Pressure to crack NEET. Police say the fallout was fatal. During the confrontation, Akshat allegedly fired his father's licensed rifle, killing him on the spot. What followed has horrified the city. Investigators say the son dragged the body downstairs, allegedly planning to dump it into the Gomti River. When he failed, he allegedly bought a saw and dismembered the body. The head and torso were stuffed inside a blue plastic drum inside the house. The hands and legs were dumped elsewhere. The victim's minor daughter reportedly saw the aftermath, but was allegedly threatened and confined for days.
As you see, the crime scene has been logged by the UP police, but the entire thing happened inside this particular room where the 21-year-old Akshat firstly killed his father by firing a bullet over his head, then cut his body in two parts and then stored it in a blue drum.
ये प्री प्लान मर्डर किया है उसने बेटे ने। क्या उसको ईगो हर्ट था, क्या प्रॉब्लम थी, मुझे नहीं पता। और बेटी के सामने ही ये सारी वारदात हुई है। बेटी के सामने सारी वारदात हुई है। और बेटी का ये कहना है कि हमको डरा दिया गया था भाई द्वारा, कह दिया गया था कि तुम किसी से कहना नहीं, तुमको भी गोली मार देंगे।
Acid was also recovered from the house. Family members claim it may have been used to destroy evidence. Neighbors say when Manvendra went missing, a WhatsApp group was created. Akshat was part of it. In fact, he even kept sharing updates and even went to the police to file a missing complaint.
अभी 22 तारीख की कहानी यही बनियान पहन के बैठे थे, अपने पिताजी को ढूंढ रहे थे। हाँ, ढूंढ रहे थे। FIR खुद करने गए थे वो।
मतलब मर्डर हुआ 21 को, 22 को खुद ढूंढ रहे थे, खुद FIR करने गए हैं। आप लोगों से क्या कह रहे थे?
कह रहे कि हमारे पिताजी दिख नहीं रहे हैं।
Suspicion grew when CCTV showed the father entering the house but never walking out of it.
19 तारीख की रात के 1 बजे वो शादी से आए और वो अंदर गए हैं।
उसके बाद वो गाड़ी उस गेट से ना बाहर निकली और ना मानवेंद्र उस गेट से बाहर निकले।
गाड़ी तो उन्होंने यहाँ खड़ी करी।
तो मानवेंद्र अंदर गए। CCTV में दिखाई पड़ा। मानवेंद्र CCTV से बाहर आए, वो
दिखाई नहीं पड़ा।
Police interrogation cracked the case. Body parts were recovered from the house and other locations. Akshat Singh is now under arrest, charged with murder and destruction of evidence. From NEET pressure to patricide, it's a family torn apart in one fatal flash of rage. With Samad Srivastava in Lucknow, Bureau Report, India Today.
Cutting us across to some updates now, and this is on the death case of Yuvraj, the Noida engineer, the techie, who lost his life after his car fell into an open pit, remember, that was unmarked and filled with water. A PIL has now been filed in the Allahabad High Court, which has sought responses from the Noida Authority, the DM, the Noida Police, SDRF, and also the NDRF. The court has sought responses from all 6 departments. The case will be next heard on the 17th of March. An SIT investigation has also been conducted into the matter. Remember, that was ordered by the UP government, but now a PIL that has been filed in the Allahabad High Court will be looking into the matter. Nalini is with us for more details on this. Nalini, could you share with us what exactly is it that the SIT had said in its investigation? Clearly, that's not, that's not been sitting well with those aggrieved, and that's why these even approached the High Court.
Sonal, absolutely, and it's because the court was not satisfied with the kind of investigation that has been done is why a notice has been issued to all the authorities from Noida, including the Noida police, to file their responses and to officially bring on record not only what were the events that led to the death of Yuvraj Mehta on that fateful day, but also what kind of steps have been taken by the authorities after this incident had occurred. Because even at that time, Sonal, if you remember, India Today repeatedly reported about how this was not an isolated case. That was a place that a lot of accidents were happening in, which is why, in the interest of which this PIL has been filed in the Allahabad High Court, under which jurisdiction Noida falls. And that is why all the authorities, including the SDRF and the NDRF, have been asked to file their responses so that the court can get a clear picture of not only what happened that day when Yuvraj lost his life, because there were several hours where there were several authorities who were present on the spot, but despite that, no action had been taken.
Correct.
But also the fact as to what steps have been taken even after the incident, whether any safety or precautionary measures have been put into place to see that it doesn't happen again. Now, of course, the detailed hearing will be on the 17th of March, which is when we are going to hear more from the Allahabad High Court, what they have to say. But in the meantime, all the 6 authorities, including the DM, the SDRF, the NDRF, as well as the Noida police, will all have to officially file their responses before the Allahabad High Court in response to this PIL.
Nalini, very quickly, who filed this PIL?
Sonal, we are still not sure on the details, but we are given to understand it was a public-spirited citizen who was from Noida, who was perturbed by the kind of incidents that were taking place in this particular place, which is why this PIL was filed, to ensure that the authorities can take responsibility for the incidents that have happened.
All right, so a public interest litigation there that has been filed in the Allahabad High Court, and the case escalating there because you and I all know that this case will not be the last. There have been so many others which have been reported. We have reported on so many open death traps that are there all over, not just in Noida and Greater Noida, but several areas of Delhi as well. So let's see what happens when that case comes up in court. Thanks, Nalini, for joining us for the very latest. All right, the other big story we are tracking here, India will soon roll out a nationwide human papillomavirus or HPV vaccination program aimed at reducing the country's heavy cervical cancer burden. Now, the focus is clear, that is to protect adolescent girls before exposure to the virus that causes the disease. This is significant because India accounts for nearly 1/3 of all cervical cancer cases globally. Cervical cancer, remember, is one of the most common cancers affecting women in the country, and it is also one of the most preventable ones as well. Remember, persistent infection with high-risk strains of HPV is the primary cause of this cancer, and vaccination before exposure dramatically reduces that risk as well. Health experts have long argued that prevention through early immunization along with screening is the most effective way to bring down these cases. And with this nationwide rollout, India is attempting to shift from late detection and treatment to early prevention as well. Now, if implemented effectively and widely adopted, the program could actually mark a decisive step in reducing one of the country's most preventable cancer deaths. My colleague Sneha joins us for more details on this story. Sneha, nobody can argue that this is a move in the right direction, but there was confusion earlier on whether or not this will be part of the government immunization program that will be rolled out. Any clarity on that?
Yes, it's a part of the special immunization drive actually. For the time being, 1 crore doses are here. Not really a part of the national immunization program, but a special drive, so to speak. Sonal, if that answers your question. But 1 crore doses already, and the government is ready to roll it out, is what I'm learning from my sources within the health ministry. Also the fact that 2.4 crore doses would be acquired via Gavi, and that it's going to be given to girls at the age of 14. A buffer of 3 months is what I'm being told not more than 14 to 14 and a half months or so, but not more than that, because that's the time when puberty is hit, and that's the most appropriate time for young girls to get that vaccine. We know that cervical cancer and extreme forms of HPV infection is what causes cervical cancer. Other than that, the infection remains dormant in all the bodies of most women who are, who are already sexual in that sense. So this is something that the government is looking at because it prevents cervical cancer. The efficacy is astounding at 93 to 100%. So that's really good. Also, this particular vaccine that is being given out causes around 4,000 to 5,000 rupees in the market. A different variety causes more, about 10,000. But right now, free of cost, single dose, good enough, says the World Health Organization. One dose is good, of course. More than one would be better, but one dose is good enough for that initial protection, is what the WHO has also said, and that's what the government is going by. It's going to be rolled out, and it's going to be a pan-India drive, is what I'm learning at this point in time.
Right. Sneha, whenever we talk about mass immunization, for a challenging terrain and country like India, distribution has always been an issue. We have spoken about this in the past as well. Any plans on how government plans to take this to the remotest corners of the country?
Cold storage was a question that we all asked in that sense, because that has been a problem area, but that is being ensured because the supply is through Gavi, is what we're hearing. So that has been thought of. Of course, we will know the finer details as soon as this program, this rollout really begins, but it is going to reach the remotest parts of the country, generating awareness around this disease. Also because, it's being given to girls at the age of 14. There could be some apprehension. We've seen that in the past as well. But by and large, the government says they're ready to handle those challenges like they've done in the past as well. I mean, it's not the end. At the end of the day, we have a robust immunization program, and the government is, banking on its experience from the past to cash in upon that as far as faith on a medicine or a vaccine is concerned. Those are going to be challenges as far as reaching the remote areas of the country is concerned. In days and weeks to come, we'll know more, and we'll be getting finer details of the same in days to come. But what I do know at this point in time is that the rollout is expected. A crore dose is already in, so a crore girls would be benefiting almost immediately in the next few weeks and months or so as this program gets activated, and then more. This is, of course, an arrangement which has been worked out now. India is working on its own vaccine also against cervical cancer. All of that is in the pipeline, but like I said, at this point in time, the good news is that it's preventable. It was promised in the budget in the year 2024. Nirmala Sitharaman, the finance minister, had said that the government would encourage vaccine against cervical cancer, and now, in a way, they've really delivered on that.
All right, we'll leave it there for the moment. For any of you who have more questions on cervical cancer, we've got detailed reports going on indiatoday.com. So please go there and check out if you are eligible, if you should be taking, and if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments there as well. And in news just coming in, Prime Minister is all set to embark a two-day visit to Israel starting tomorrow. Prime Minister Modi's first visit to Israel after 2017. Remember, Modi and Netanyahu will be holding the bilateral talks and discuss further opportunities in various areas of cooperation, we are told, including science, technology, innovation, defense and security. It is also believed that India may push for transfer of technology of Israel's most advanced drones, its missiles, its laser defense system as well during this visit. To tell us a little more about that, I'm joined by my colleague Pranay Upadhyay. Pranay, take us through what are the possible key discussion points emerging from this meeting.
Sonal, as you mentioned, that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is scheduled to visit Israel for his second state visit to Israel, and he will be the second Indian Prime Minister to visit Israel. He would be in Jerusalem and he would be spending around 28 hours in Israel, and there he would be taking forward the relationship between India and Israel to another level, because in 2017 when India and Israel decided to take forward their strategic partnership, after almost 10 years or 9 years, this relationship has matured to a level where both the leadership level discussion would take it to another level, where the defense and security collaboration will take concrete steps. In terms of the technology transfer, India is looking at the counter-drone technology, India is looking at quantum computing, cyber security, startup and innovation are the areas where India and Israel can collaborate a lot. Besides that, agriculture has also been an important area of India-Israel collaboration. And besides that, the migration and mobility of Indian professionals, Indian workers, and investment of Indian companies in Israel. These are some important areas which will be on the agenda for the dialogue between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Besides that, the IMAC, the India-Middle East Economic Corridor, how to take forward that project, which was announced on the sidelines of G20 summit in 2023 when India hosted the G20 summits. So these are the key areas of bilateral, regional and the international collaboration and cooperation between India and Israel will be on the table of agenda for Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Netanyahu.
All right. Thanks so much, Pranay, for taking and bringing us up to speed with all those details. We'll keep a very close one, on how that meeting actually goes. All right, let's cut across to some pictures that are just coming in, and this is of a clash that seems to be taking place here in the national capital amid the politics for those shirt-off protests taken off by Youth Congress and the subsequent arrest that took place of all those Youth Congress members, including their chief this morning. There is now a mega stir that seems to be unfolding here in the national capital. Delhi police has now called Uday Bhan the chief mastermind of the shirtless protest at the AI summit. You see there Uday Bhanu, who has been arrested earlier in the morning for this protest. What followed was also a very babbar-share response that came from Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi, addressing a rally, made it very clear that he was proud of all the people who actually did that. The Prime Minister, on the other hand, had taken note of this entire protest. In fact, said that it was shameful for the Congress party to have done that. Let me see if I have my... All right, my colleague Rahul Gautam is at the site of that protest. Rahul, where exactly is this happening? How many people do you see there? Can you hear me? All right, let's try and connect with Rahul. There is understandably a lot of chaos where you see those visuals coming to us from. This is the Congress headquarters now, we are told, where this entire protest is taking place. I see people, I see Congress workers and supporters on top of barricades there, holding their Youth Congress flags. You can also see the police there and also some paramilitary on top of those barricades who are trying to obstruct. We see some sloganeering there happening as well. All right, we'll cut back to that as we get more details. But for now, let's shift our focus to another story. And this one is for all pet owners or who live around pets. Not an alarmist one, but one that is specifically of concern. Now, most of us have a version of the scene living in our own lives. You're at home, there is a small cut that appears on your leg. Your dog very nicely pads over and gives you an affectionate lick. You think nothing really of it. You thank the dog really for being so concerned and affectionate towards you. But for 56-year-old Manjeet Sangha in Birmingham, that ordinary moment turned into a medical emergency that would change her life forever. Sangha fell critically ill after her dog licked a small wound on her leg. What followed was not gradual discomfort, but a rapid and terrifying collapse. Within days, she was unable to speak. She was rushed to the hospital. Doctors diagnosed her with sepsis, a life-threatening condition in which the body's response to infection spirals out of control. Sepsis, remember, is not just an infection. It is a body attacking itself in response to affection, and also inflammation spreads. Blood pressure can drop, organs begin to fail. In Sangha's case, the infection was so aggressive that doctors had to amputate both her hands and both legs below the knees to save her life. She also suffered 6 cardiac arrests during her battle in hospital. She survived, of course, but at an unimaginable cost. But out of this story, I was wondering to myself, how does something as simple as a dog's lick, that to a pet dog who's fully vaccinated, lead to something like this? The report actually examines the dog's saliva and talks about the different bacteria which is there. Now, most of the time, these bacteria are harmless to humans. But when they enter the bloodstream through any broken skin, even a tiny cut, they can cause infection. In rare cases, that infection can escalate into sepsis. And I'm saying this word again, in very, very rare cases, this happens. This is not a reason to fear pets. Millions of people live safely with dogs. But it is a reason to understand how quickly infections can escalate and how seriously we must treat even minor wounds. The bigger story here is not about the dog. It's about awareness. Sepsis often, brings with it symptoms that look ordinary. Fever, chills, rapid heartbeat, confusion, weakness. These signs can be mistaken for just a flu or exhaustion. But if you've had a minor cut or anything untoward that has happened, you've had a fall or anything of that matter and these signs come, you have to go and seek critical care, seek emergency care from your doctor. Because remember, sepsis can progress in hours. Early treatment is critical, absolutely important. What we can learn from Sanga's experience is this. First, never ignore a wound, clean it properly, cover it. Watch for redness, swelling, fever, or any sudden weakness that comes around that wound. Second, seek medical help early if something feels wrong. Sepsis, remember, is treatable, especially when caught in time, if only caught in time. And finally, understand that health can turn on small details. It can start with a tiny cut, a delayed doctor visit, a symptom dismissed as minor. And while Sanga's story is, quite dramatic, the lesson is pretty practical. Infections do not always announce themselves loudly. Sometimes they begin in the most ordinary moments of everyday life. So awareness, not fear, is the takeaway from the story, because sometimes the difference between recovery and catastrophe is simply how quickly we recognize these simple signs. All right, with that, let's take you through what is happening in United States. It's called a monster snowstorm, known as the winter storm there, has brought United States northeast to a standstill, dumping up to 3 feet of snow in certain states. Several hundreds of flights have been cancelled, but this is the latest report. The city has been buried under white snow, but New Yorkers are seen enjoying that snow in certain areas as well. Central Park turned playground for children, adults, and even dogs. Several people were seen building a snowman there. But heavy snowstorm has also brought iconic Times Square. Times Square to a standstill. A thick layer of snow there had covered the roads, making movement also difficult. A man was seen skiing on the road. Efforts are underway to clear the snow from the streets. Easy to say that those visuals can be seen all across New York as well. Similar scenes were witnessed in Boston, where cars, houses and trees have been covered in snow. The massive blizzard there has led to the cancellation of several flights. Residents have been advised to stay indoors.